course, today, Chamberlain, I was listening to Bismarck one earlier. You knew where we are today. This is one of the most difficult periods we've faced in Nigeria for a very long time. Today, we could see where our headline inflation is today compared to where we were about a year ago. Today, we could see where the food inflation, for example.
Now, wait. Let me bring a point here. 10 years ago was 2014. Sometime in 2013, the Naira exchanged for 150 Naira. And I could remember, actually in the Yaba area of Lagos, where I was involved with some transactions, I remember exchanging 150 Naira to just a single dollar. The issue of this Nigeria's devaluation, I think, is not a far-fetched solution. It's something that is within our grasp, and I want to believe that if our people, our leaders here, can do the right thing, this thing can be curtailed. I'm hearing something that somewhere in Morocco, or even, I think, is it not Afghanistan? Yes. How Afghanistan was able to control this issue of inflation due to foreign exchange was that they seized all the foreign currencies coming into the country. So it was centralized. Nobody was allowed to use foreign currency within the Afghanistan borders. This was Afghanistan. I think a greater part of that landmass is just deserts, as far as we know. So if they could do that, or they did that actually, the Taliban actually, they did that. And you know that, surprisingly, every inflation was controlled. Since it was just the foreign currency coming in was being, handled by the Taliban, their local currency, improved. It's appreciated. So I feel that if you look at that model and, probably other examples like that, like also in some parts of the southeast, or the Middle East rather, not the southeast, the Middle East too, like Kuwaiti and some of these countries that Nigerians like going to. I think this is the same principle that is guiding them. But for Nigeria, it's like they have not yet woken up to this particular thing. If this can be replicated here, if that model can be replicated here, you will just discover that the dollar might just be exchanging for less than 100 Naira, or probably 50 Naira. All right. If all the foreign currencies in circulation is monitored, such that probably centrally no one is allowed to exchange goods and services in Nigeria in foreign currency, but in the local currency, that might help. Because the analysis this man is giving is quite on point. Because if you keep allowing if Nigeria keeps allowing foreign factors, these foreign factors I've always emphasized in several of my entrepreneurship series. Okay, I talked about the local language, the importance of local language. The same thing is what is applying, or that is also happening to the Naira. When you allow foreign currencies to flood into your local currency, of course, economic disaster takes place.
That's the best thing to have been done today. Do you know that if you channel, what they are putting is about $10 billion, because the minister said about 14 trillion Naira out there. That's about $10 billion. If you sit down and develop a program and deconstruct your power systems, and you look at the north, wind energy, solar energy, this hydro energy, you deconstruct according to the new act that was passed recently that allows states to float their expertise. So if you deploy it to energy, you deploy it to power, and Nigeria is able to have even 20 hours power supply. Do you know the contribution of that to the GDP? So these are the building coastal roads. Have they done the calculation to know this money that you are deploying, how much is it going to impact your GDP? This money that you are deploying, what are the opportunity costs to it? There must be debate. Look at all this same line. When you have things like this, you will do a public hearing. People come and make contributions, valuable contributions. But it's not, you just pick one contractor, give it the contract, and we are speaking grammar everywhere. So as a nation, we must be serious in how we form.
You say we speak grammar. Oh no, this just reminds me of one of my videos I did on language. The language of Yoruba, the Ede Yoruba. Oh, I've not seen. I don't know why. Why should we? In fact, Nigeria's national, lingua franca should be its local languages. Like I've often said, it should be our local languages because I see no reason why we should be clamoring or be so elated about foreign language and foreign things. But the application to it to local context is missing. It's a far cry. And that's one of the basic things that needs to be fixed as far as Nigeria is concerned. And I hope that one day
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Now today, there is this trending news about minimum wage in Nigeria, and one of the recent interviews granted by Channels TV, credits to Channels TV for this very video that we are taking a look at today on the entrepreneurship series. Do you guys know that one of the major issues Africa has that keeps this Africa in this narrative of being poor is the minimum wage? Yes. Now the fact is that for whatever skill that you have, it's somewhat boils down to how much capital or how much wage you can earn for your skill. You can be compensated for your skill. One of the NLC representatives was interviewed by Channels TV, and the conversation hits home hard, I must confess to you, and that's one of the reasons why we want to take a look at what issues were raised and how it was being addressed by one of the NLC leaders in Nigeria. So let's sit back and relax and let us just put our pens and bios together and see what we can learn for life and not for school.
Welcome back. Yes, indeed. We've got Comrade Festus Osifo here with us. He is the president of Trade Union Congress. Thank you for coming on today. So it's almost as if from the day one, when this government came into being, Labour were on their toes after that announcement, and so they had to fold your sleeves. And only last week, about this week, this negotiation about the minimum wage has been going back and forth. Nigerians are wondering, where do we go from here? So where are we now with that negotiation with government? Thank you, Chamberlain. Good evening, Chamberlain, Maupe, and good evening, Nigerians. Yes, the last meeting we held on this was actually 2 days ago. So we had, yesterday actually, we had an engagement with them, and in that engagement, they've offered 60,000 naira as the minimum wage. So we asked them clearly that they should give us a breakdown of transport, how much will the person spend on food, how much will be the cost on housing, so they should give us a breakdown. Because all the summary that we did, we had a breakdown of what we think will work. Because today, Chamberlain, I was listening to Bismarck the one in earlier, you knew where we are today. This is one of the most difficult periods we've faced in Nigeria for a very long time. Today, we could see where our headline inflation is today compared to where we were about a year ago. Today, we could see where the food inflation, for example.
Now, wait. Let me bring a point here. 10 years ago was 2014. Sometime in 2013, the Naira exchanged for 150 Naira. And I could remember, actually in the Yaba area of Lagos, where I was involved with some transactions, I remember exchanging 150 Naira to just a single dollar. The issue of this Nigeria's devaluation, I think, is not a far-fetched solution. It's something that is within our grasp, and I want to believe that if our people, our leaders here, can do the right thing, this thing can be curtailed. I'm hearing something that somewhere in Morocco, or even, I think, is it not Afghanistan? Yes. How Afghanistan was able to control this issue of inflation due to foreign exchange was that they seized all the foreign currencies coming into the country. So it was centralized. Nobody was allowed to use foreign currency within the Afghanistan borders. This was Afghanistan. I think a greater part of that landmass is just deserts, as far as we know. So if they could do that, or they did that actually, the Taliban actually, they did that. And you know that, surprisingly, every inflation was controlled. Since it was just the foreign currency coming in was being, handled by the Taliban, their local currency, improved. It's appreciated. So I feel that if you look at that model and, probably other examples like that, like also in some parts of the southeast, or the Middle East rather, not the southeast, the Middle East too, like Kuwaiti and some of these countries that Nigerians like going to. I think this is the same principle that is guiding them. But for Nigeria, it's like they have not yet woken up to this particular thing. If this can be replicated here, if that model can be replicated here, you will just discover that the dollar might just be exchanging for less than 100 Naira, or probably 50 Naira. All right, if all the foreign currencies in circulation is monitored, such that probably centrally it is, no one is allowed to exchange goods and services in Nigeria in foreign currency but in the local currency. That might help, because the analysis this man is giving is quite on point. Because if you keep allowing if Nigeria keeps allowing foreign factors, these foreign factors I've always emphasized in several of my entrepreneurship series. Okay, I talked about the local language, the importance of local language. The same thing is what is applying, or that is also happening to the Naira. When you allow foreign currencies to flood into your local currency, of course, economic disaster takes place unfettered. So I want to really 100% agree with this man as far as his analysis and his contribution to this discussion is concerned.
I love the slide when he brought about the food, the cost of food today. The reality, what is the cost of tomatoes? What is the cost of beans? The cost of rice? So these are all the arguments that we place before government in that meeting. We give them the statistics, and this is where we are. We can even go to the market. If you don't believe us, let's go to the market and do these findings. And again, which is much more important, is the value of 60,000 Naira. Can you equate the value of 60,000 Naira today to what 11,000 Naira was in 2011 and to what 30,000 Naira was in 2019? Clearly is a no. So for us, that 60,000 Naira, we rejected it, because 60,000 Naira is equivalent to $40, and that is a far cry in where we think we should be regarding minimum wage.
So is that 60,000 Naira, that's supposed to
total money that you earn. So both your allowances, everything will be 60,000 naira. Because during the conversation and during the meeting, federal government did a survey. There was a survey did by the committee, but led by the Minister of Finance. So in that survey, it was clear that some states will not pay minimum wage. And one of those states was actually Anambra State. So when he was confronted, so when they finally came up, they said no, but that both salary and allowances is what you will add. When we went to the act, what the act was really talking about was your total pay in the month. So it is not basic salary, but the full emolument.
Is Anambra paying the 30,000 naira now?
I know, for us, from what the survey did, the findings of the survey, Anambra is one of those states that are not paying minimum wage. But Professor Soludo, the governor of Anambra, disputed that he's paying minimum wage. But from the findings of the data and the survey that was done, it was clearly shown that Anambra State is one of the 5 states or thereabout that are not paying minimum wage as of today.
So the conversation then is, there is now that part of, determining what exactly is desirable, what exactly it is that we believe should be sufficient for the least paid worker, but be it in government or the private sector, and the capacity of those who are supposed to pay this money to pay. If today 30,000 naira, meager as it is, and in spite of increased revenue allocation to the state government, some states are still not making 30,000 naira available to their least paid workers. What is the guarantee that with what labor is asking, 497,000 naira, that is going to happen?
Yes, Maupe, what we have discovered is this, that the states that are not paying minimum wage, it is not because they cannot afford to pay. Because you have some states, if you look at FAC allocation, look at interim territorial revenue. So imagine a state like Anambra, imagine a hub like Onitsha, imagine a hub like Inewi. So these are states that literally they should be able to pay. So not that they don't have the resources to pay, but it is the willingness to pay. That is actually the challenge. And just what you have said, okay, look at the time when President Muhammadu Buhari gave some money to states to pay minimum wage, to pay workers that they were owing. A state like Kogi State, they refused to pay. Few other states refuse to pay. So not that they don't have the resources to pay.
You know what, at this point, I strongly feel that one of the basic issues that Africa has, seems to stem from the leaders. I don't know whether it's the choice of leaders or the leaders that just find themselves in the positions of power, but from what this man is saying, it's pretty obvious that a lot of economic problems that Africa and Nigeria is struggling with comes from the leaders in positions that take decisions. And once the head is compromised, the body becomes something else. Just to say the least.
But it's actually the willpower to do. Maupe, if you look at today, look at FAC allocation, just as you have alluded to, it has gone up. So let's assume a state that could not pay, let's say about 2 years ago, today the FAC allocation has gone up by close to 100%. At the time, they were sharing about 400 to 500 billion naira per month. But today, they share over 1.2 billion naira.
They're talking about this billion. Nigeria, I don't know why we talk a lot about billions, but the population of Nigeria is just about roughly 250 million, So this excess capital or liquidity in circulation, you begin to ask yourself that who is mopping up these excess funds in circulation? I know there's this principle in economics that I learned, way back in the O levels, that when money or capital, capital, physical cash, when it exceeds, when too much of it is going after just few goods and services, the next thing is that there's going to be hyperinflation. And in this case, in Nigeria's case, this is 100% true. This is just the fact.
Yes, over 1.2 trillion naira per month. So if you check that, you could see that percentage increment. So why are they not paying? It's just simply because they are not ready to pay. But on the part of labor, we have resolved that when we arrive at this new minimum wage, any state that refuses to comply to that new minimum wage, we are going to shut them down. And we are very serious about this because they have the ability to pay, just that they don't want to pay.
How quickly do you think that, you'll be able to arrive at this? Because if you're still at 497,000, which we all know is quite steep, and it's not just government you're asking to pay this, it's also going to be affecting the private sector. It's going to affect the ability of a lot of people in the private sector to pay. You listen to Mr. Rewane, who says that that could also see people losing their jobs if labor is insistent that will be the minimum wage. How quickly do you think that that should come on board, given that we have been at this since last year?
We actually started. The committee was inaugurated January 30th. But we have lost a lot of time because we actually said we will complete this before May 1st. But here we are entering June. But if you remember, when we submitted our charter of demand, it was 615,000. And when I granted interview to your studio, what we said then was that this is a demand. So this is negotiation. As of today, we are in 497,000 naira. Are we going to stay there? That government must pay us 497,000 naira? The answer is no. The same way we submitted 615 because when you are negotiating, you must have room to move. You must have headroom to negotiate. We know what we think the right minimum wage should be. And this, like what I have said, my friend, when 18,000 naira was negotiated in 2011, the value of 18,000 naira as at then was about $125. So if you take $125 today, just multiply $125 by 1,500, you're going to see that it's only somewhere around 200,000 naira. So what we are looking at is not the volume, but what we are looking at is the value. So 60,000 naira today, giving us $40 is a far cry. A country like Angola that has about 1 million civil servants in Angola, they just put their minimum wage to $120. And Angola is not even the best case when you talk about minimum wage in Africa. You have Libya, you have Seychelles, you have Morocco.
You know what? I like the analysis of this man and his references. The analysis is on point, and the references too is on point. This guy is good.
And the like that are paying over $300 as a minimum wage. So for us, all we are pushing is that, we reduced from 497 to 494. But are we going to dwell and stay there? The answer is no. It is a negotiation and a give and take. And remember, we issue an ultimatum May 1st. And that ultimatum still subsists. That by May 31st, if government refuses to do the needful, then we can no longer guarantee industrial action. And it still subsists because again, we had NEC within this period, and the NEC gave us the charging to ensure that we have the new minimum wage by May 31.
So that's the needful. You must get to that minimum wage. Not that they say, well, you're close to your possible agreement area.
No, we have to agree by May 31st. If we don't agree by May 31st, then from June 1, we can no longer guarantee industrial pay. But our members are suffering. Today, Nigerians are suffering.
Exactly.
Workers are suffering.
Exactly. So what I did say that we've been at this since last year is the fact that the effect of the removal of subsidy had been felt since last year.
Now, let me also chip in this here. One of the reasons why we see a lot of migrations to the West is primarily because of this value, the devaluation of Nigeria's currency. I want to strongly believe that if this devaluation issue is well handled, and sustained, because sustainability is very important. It's not as if somebody will come up with an idea and change or balance the two sides of this exchange rate, and then tomorrow it goes all the way to the drain again. No. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking of sustained economic growth. Sustained economic growth is very, very critical and cannot be overemphasized or cannot be treated with or toyed with. So if today all these flippant foreign currencies are scrapped from circulation in Nigeria, and the only currency in circulation within Nigeria's borders is the Nigerian's naira, you cannot buy or sell anything without having the Nigeria's naira. Then I think automatically the naira will appreciate in value, because this foreign interference of foreign currency choking Nigeria with different currencies in the world will stop, and things will become balanced. But I feel probably, let's just hope that our leaders will come to this consensus one day, and irrespective of their political ideas and their inclinations, they will see purpose to this thing that that I'm talking about, and that is also being substantiated by this man that's being interviewed.
Immediately fuel subsidy was taken away, we started to see the prices of petrol and everything else go up. Even now, electricity, has also shot beyond the roof.
True.
So when you look at how long this has taken, if workers have survived for this long, it shouldn't we get to this very quickly?
Well, yes, it is. The purpose is for government to conclude the conversations and be much more serious. Because
You think we are serious?
yes, they are very, very unserious today. Because putting 60,000 naira on the table for us, it shows some smack of unseriousness. If this conversation was taking place when fuel subsidy was still there, if the conversation was taking place in a single-digit inflation environment, if the conversation was taking place when the fundamentals was quite alright, it could have been a bit.
Now, if you look at this picture, you can see the cars lining up for fuel, and all that. One of my videos, I did mention that these automobile cars, is it not possible to convert these engines into electricals? I mean, take for instance Lagos on its own. If Lagos can, convert all the cars in its motor roads into, electrical, I think the demand for fuel generally will fall, and the price will be dragged down. That's another option. All right, there are several ways out to this predicament, and this stalemate, as probably I would put it. So if these things are properly done and administered without allowing any trivial interferences, economic recovery is just by the doorstep. It's not far away from Nigeria.
Different. But if you were offering 60,000 naira, say probably April last year, then we could have said, okay, government is doing something reasonable. But offering 60,000 naira for a Nigeria of today, I think it's a smack of unseriousness. And for us in Labour, we will not accept that until government do the needful. Just as I've said, are we fixated on 494,000 naira? The answer is no. So we know what is right, and we are going to push to get what is right for Nigerians and for our members.
What do you think government can comfortably pay?
And it's not in my purview to say what government can comfortably pay, but what is in our purview is what we think we take an average Nigeria home. Like as I've said, we have historical precedents for what the minimum wage has been, both in naira and dollar equivalent. So when we get to that point, I think we would be able to agree. We think, finally, on the issue of this minimum wage, that the government, as of today, they also know that 60,000 naira will not be able to take any Nigeria home today. They know. We have this communication with them on the table. They understand that. But the charge we are giving to them is that governance is not a tea party. Governance is not you sit down at the end of the month, you collect back allocation, you share. No. Governance is much more serious than this. We have the resources in Nigeria that could be turned around to improve the fortunes of this country. It's not just, you throw out policy.
We have the resources that could make the turnaround in this country. This is one of the most important points in this interview, and which is, in fact, undisputable facts.
This every day. You look at this administration, when they came on board, they started dishing out policies. But when you are trying out policies, you must look at the people that the policies are going to affect. How positive and negative it will affect them. Imagine, Chamberlain, we did a flotation of naira. At the same time, we removed fuel subsidy. It was a disaster. You don't do both at the same time. The government, what was the level of consultations that were done? And they even did this when there wasn't substantive CBN.
Well, this is a fact. Wow, this guy just made a very, very important point here. Removing subsidy, at the same time, doing some other thing that is also going to spike a huge inflation. Wow, this man really, really hit the nail on the head here.
Because if you don't have substantive CBN governors and the executives who could meet, just check how long it took for MPC to meet till they met sometime in February. Almost about 4 or 5 months, they did not meet because CBN was not properly constituted. And you floated the Naira against a CBN that was not properly constituted. And these are the people that could bring out measures.
That's true. I mean, floating the Naira at the same time removing subsidy. Wow, that was really, really. I think that might have really been what really brought the shock to the economy right now. That the Nigeria's economy is still yet to recover from.
The necessary monetary policies to be able to tell whatsoever effect is going to have. That is why speculators, they have fee day. That is why the bankers, they have fee days. So before you bring about any policy, there must be interrogation. There must be appraisal. You must want to do a lot of financial simulation to know how such policies are going to affect the macro and the micro.
This guy is just on point. Financial simulation. This is so very, very on point. Financial simulation. Just like we have in computer-aided design and engineering simulation.
Economics of your citizens, then you know how it will affect their pocket. But this we have never done. Do you know that if, for example, our Naira was still at 450 to $1, PMS today would have been selling for around 300 Naira per liter. AGO would have been selling for around 400 Naira per liter. So the real cross of it, why things have moved haywire today, is majorly because of the flotation of Naira. I've listened to people, they talk about both flotation and unification. These are different. The private market, when it was floated in June last year, the private market was around 600 Naira plus, about 700 Naira. If you are unifying, you could have gone to 700. But you floated it without the necessary instrument to guide. So imagine today, we don't still have CBA board or the MPC properly constituted. Imagine when Naira moved to somewhere around 8,000, 7,800. It would have gone to about 3,000 Naira to $1 today. So that was a first error on the part of government. When you are bringing any policy, there must be deep consultation and there must be reflection and a lot of financial simulation and modeling for you to arrive at what is actually right. This was
I love this man. This guy is this guy is really, really, really hitting it hard. I mean, modeling. When we talk about modeling is not just in computer science and artificial intelligence and programming. Modeling is is interdisciplinary. You have models. You live by humanity advances by models. So, if assuming Nigeria wants to recover from this economic debacle, so to speak, you need to follow where things has worked. There must have been countries that experienced these kind of things. What did they do, to get out of this? These are critical research questions that must not just be theoretically analyzed, but practically oriented and implemented. So these things can be done. And the recovery can be set in motion. The permanent, sustainable recovery that we're talking about that has long eluded Nigeria.
Last year when they floated Naira.
So would you say, reaching the Tinubu administration in the last 1 year, that they haven't really thought through their policies?
True, correct. You could see a lot of inconsistency in their policy, but you could see them. You could see our policy somersault. You come today, you bring a policy, tomorrow people shout, you take it back. No, that is not how it should be. This is government. Government should have the resources to sit down and look at all the programs and policies they ought to put in place. We are not saying this. All we are seeing is policy somersault, and all we are seeing is policy inconsistency. And one of the things that in a same line, at times, before you deploy the sources of the people, there should be a lot of debate. Look, for example, the issue of the coastal line. We've had some debates on this in the labor movement. Was that the best thing to have been done today? Do you know that if you channel, what they are putting is about $10 billion, because the minister said about 14 trillion Naira out there, that's about $10 billion. If you sit down and develop a program and deconstruct your power systems, and you look at the north, wind energy, solar energy, hydro energy. You deconstruct according to the new act that was passed recently that allows states to float their expensive. So if you deploy it to energy, you deploy it to power, and Nigeria is able to have even 20 hours power supply. Do you know the contribution of that to the GDP? So these are their building coastal roads. Have they done the calculation to know this money that you are deploying, how much is it going to impact your GDP? This money that you are deploying, what are the opportunity costs to it? This must be, there must be debate. Look at all this same line. When you have things like this, you will do a lot of public hearing. People come and make contributions, valuable contributions. But it's not, you just pick one contractor, give it the contract, and we are speaking grammar everywhere. So as a nation, we must be serious in how we form.
He said we speak grammar. Oh no, this just reminds me of one of my videos I did on language, the language of Yoruba, the Ede Yoruba. I've not seen, I don't know why should we, in fact, Nigeria's national, lingua franca should be its local languages. Like I've often said, it should be our local languages, because I see no reason why we should be clamoring or be so elated about foreign language and foreign things, but the application to it to local context is missing. It's a far cry, and that's one of the basic things that needs to be fixed as far as Nigeria is concerned. And I hope that one day Nigeria will get it right.
Our policies and in how we spend our money, because resources are scarce and we must be able to deploy them to the areas that we unlock our economy, not just to throw money the way we are doing them today in Nigeria.
It's interesting that you say this. But
let me also chip this in here. As a human being and also as a programmer, when you start making your income from your knowledge sets, all right, I would seriously recommend, not just those of you, whether you're interested in programming or not, you should have financial intelligence. Financial intelligence is very, very important in life, because the resources that you have around you always have their limits. So you must be able to channel your these scarce resources for optimality, for optimal purposes. You mustn't just spend for spending's sake. Because somebody is doing this, then you also want to do the same thing. You must ensure that you learn how to reduce, consumption of wasteful resources, unnecessary spending, unnecessary expenditure, and so many other. These are the things that we need. I do tell people too that the religion in Nigeria is also one of the problems you have. When someone is emphatic on just dumping money into religious services and all that without building financial intelligence of how you're going to survive, how you're going to pay your next meal, how you're going to pay for your next expenses, that might not really be very helpful. The very best thing that you can do as a human being is have financial intelligence. Know where to put your money, because these capital money we're seeing all over the world now, all of them are beginning to lose value. All right, they're beginning to depreciate. So financial intelligence is very, very important. Okay, I hope we'll take note of this.
Because I know that as someone who has headed Pengerson and also now heads TUC, you have spoken in favor of the removal of fuel subsidy. But it appears that this is not how you predicted it was going to happen.
I know. If you are removing fuel like Pengerson, like we have been consistent over the years, but the challenge that came with this was actually removing fuel subsidy and floating Naira at the same time. Like what I've said, if you had left Naira at 450 for the way it was earlier, then it could have, and you go about deregulating the downstream sector of the oil and gas industry. What would have happened was that PMS would have been standing at about 300 Naira. Nigerians would have afforded it. But the challenge was that you've allowed the Naira to devalue. People have asked, oh no, it is because of the fact that we are import-dependent nation. I've asked a question. Since between the year 2000 and 2015, our dollar devalued by less than 100%. This was about 15 years. Devalued by less than 100%. Were we not importing? What has changed? Were we producing everything here in Nigeria? No. It is because there were effective policies to manage this. Then, when Buhari administration came in, the Naira devalued by over 100% in 8 years. Then this administration, it has moved by over 200 to 300% within 1 year. about the management. Like what we said, you cannot allow these two things to happen. If you are removed from subsidy, for example, and you have allowed and you have managed the monetary policy in such a way that the naira did not slide the way it did, what would have happened effectively is that today you could go to some fuel station, you buy 300, you go to the next one, you buy 310. Nigerians should have been able to manage that. But when you allow that flotation to happen, that is really the crux of the matter. So the mistake was that the government shouldn't have allowed that flotation to happen, and they shouldn't have made that announcement without having it's just like you are going to war and you don't have military. What is going to happen? That's exactly what happened. You were floating
So the point he's trying to make here is that he's trying to say that the error that they made was that they floated the naira and removed subsidy at the same time, without having existing financial institutions or responsibility or someone in the Nigeria's central financial system to actually mitigate the effects of these policies. I think this man is making a point, a very, very solid point there.
And there was no CBN board, there was no MP, there was literally nothing. Emefiele was in jail, and there was literally nothing. And that was the root of the problem that we are facing today.
Well, we will still have 3 years because the first quarter of the Tinubu administration. No, I keep saying said that for too long. But you know, we have another 3 years. Mr. Rewani, who's also an economist, he admits that we're currently bleeding. He says, but next year looks better. I mean, if you take a look at the long-term projection, it does appear that things will improve. Is it an optimism you share?
No, Maube, I listen to Bismarck Rewani, economic scholar, but a lot of us will follow this trend as well. So this is the challenge. So next year, you are predicting inflation to be 20%, for example. You know what that is? Currently now, a bag of rice is 80,000 naira. So if you are saying inflation with 20% next year, what you are saying is year on year, right? So we are in May 2023. A bag of rice 80,000 naira. So by May 2024, we are in May 2024. May 2025, a bag of rice would now be 16,000, let's say 20% inflation. It will now be 16,000 naira on top of 80,000 naira. That will give us 96,000 naira. So where we are today is first of all bad. So even when we are looking at next year that inflation will slow down, that inflation is going to be on top of this current reality that we have today. So it is not looking good in any way. I wish to quickly say this. You know, one of the challenges that we have faced, which was also faced in Buhari government, you see, when people that is not in government is trying to tell government the truth, most of those, the ministers and those serving the government, they will quickly come in defense. But do you know that majority of these people, after Buhari left, they started telling us the truth. Why can't we speak truth to those that are in power to make them do exactly what is right? I listened to Minister of Aviation and a lot of them, you know, saying that Nigeria Air was fraud. But you were in the Federal Executive Council meeting that passed Nigeria Air. Why can't we interrogate processes before we allow it to go? We should stop this system of doing rent seeking and just bootlicking political office holders. The ministers, the special advisors, they owe it a duty to always advise those in government, both state, federal and local government. You must advise them and you must tell them the truth. It's not when they leave, you will not start shouting, we could have done this or that. That is not how country develops. We must have statements that want to tell power and truth to power.
Labour had a list of demands. It wasn't just about the minimum wage at the time. So what happened to all of those other demands? Because you seem fixated, or at least so far, you're talking hugely about the minimum wage.
Yes. So those demands as well. At the time, if you remember, by sometime January this year, we issued an ultimatum to government because at then they implemented just 20% of what was in that demand. Top of it was the wage award. So after issue, as at January, they've only paid out of 6 months. They've only paid 2 months of wage award. So when we issued that ultimatum, they now quickly paid additional 4 months. So as at today, they are paid till February. But all we've told them is that no, we still have March, April, May is just ending now. So this, we constantly remind them, in the meetings we have, all these are the things we champion and we put forward to them. In that communique, they told us that by November we're going to have CNG buses. But till today, we've not seen any of them. So all these, if you check a lot of communications and a lot of releases that we have done in the past month, you will see the catalogs of what government has not done. And that is part of the challenge that we always have, which we always put to government. Don't sign agreement. After signing agreement, you go to bed thinking that the agreement will implement itself. So in that agreement, there are a lot of things there that have not been, that are some partly implemented and a whole lot of them not implemented at all.
But over the years, we've seen Labour at least get to this stage, make demands of government about minimum wage. They eventually agree on something, they move on. But we see that several states don't even live up to expectation. So what happens this time? Because chances are that we could face that scenario again.
In terms of minimum wage?
Yes.
Yes. So you are very correct. You know, as of today, from the survey carried out by MDS, it was stated that 29 states today are paying not just minimum wage, but the consequential adjustment. So what most of the states are doing is that really there is no employee that is in grade level 1, step 1. That is the employee that should earn that minimum wage. But what they will not do is that when they put, they will just claim, okay, they are paying the minimum wage, but there's no consequential adjustment. They may add 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 across the steps and across the grade. So in reality, it becomes nothing. So the states today that are applying in the way it should be, they are 29. Then some states that are paying minimum wage but not applying the consequential adjustment, there are about 3 or 4 states. Then those that are not paying at all are about 4 or 5 states. If you check most of the states, there have been a lot of strikes. There have been a lot of pushback. Even in 29, there were, initially it was 16. For us to move it from 16 to 29, there was a lot of industrial actions in those states. There were a lot of strike, a lot of call-out, a lot of disruption. So that was what made them to start paying 29. But today, Zamfara just released a statement that they will start paying 30,000 naira. We said that this is a joke. We are talking about a new minimum wage. Now you are not telling us that you start paying 30,000 at the 11th hour.
Well, Mr. Osifo, we're rounding off now, and something happened today, something very significant. We now have a new national anthem. We're reverting to the old national anthem, and there's been questions around, what has informed it, etc., etc. But this is the situation. Is Labour also going to be reacting to that?
I think we should be serious as people and as country. Is national anthem our problem today? Is it because we were not singing the old national anthem that has put Nigeria in the difficulty that we have today? These are not important issues as far as we are concerned. The Nigerian government should be much more serious in how to bring people from multidimensional poverty, on how to reduce inflation, on how to reduce interest rate. These are the real things that affect Nigeria, no national anthem. We should be serious about this.
Oh boy, I think this guy has said it all. And what more do you want to hear? The guy has really hit a lot of nails, not just nail. He has hit a lot of nails on the head. And let's just hope that the people in power will take the necessary action and, save the country from further plummeting. And one of the most important things that my takeaways from this interview is that this Mr. Osifo, the former Pengasin, he mentioned that Nigeria has what it takes. He's talking about the resources, both human and natural resources, to get itself up economically as an economic giant, where it's the local currency, its minimum wage, and other economic factors will take their rightful position, and their rightful, what would I call it? Their rightful the prominence. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave your comments. What do you think? Your opinions? Let's discuss and see what we can learn more from our comments. Ensure you will like this video and subscribe to this channel. And till next time, cheers and all the best.